Welcome to Hormone Happy Hour. This week, instead of picking a symptom or a topic to talk about, I posted a question and answer box on my Instagram and I picked 5 questions to go over because I'm leaving town this week. I wanted to do something just a little bit more fun, a little engaging, and I'd love to answer your guys' questions as they come in. So I have 5 questions that I have picked out. Potentially a bonus sixth one because I did get it asked on my Facebook, but there wasn't a lot of context to it. So I might include that in the end, depending how long this video takes. Let's dive in. So question number 1 is, why do I feel gross right before my period? This is an interesting one because for women, our hormones are adjusting, they're going up, they're going down. Everything is like working in a circular motion all month long. So naturally, there will be periods where you don't have as much energy or things do feel a little bit funky. You may feel gross right before your period if you're experiencing things like bloating, which does happen. Water retention is very common right before your period. If you have constipation, one of the most interesting things is when people are like feeling really, really backed up right before their period. And then when their period starts, they have the period poops. So having constipation, having the acne, having a harder time sleeping or sleeping through the night, being just more tired. So all of this is happening because your estrogen and progesterone are decreasing. When there's an imbalance, you can see a little bit of those symptoms starting to rise, or if we're not listening to our body and pushing through, a lot of times these symptoms are worse. So if you are feeling bad before your period, whatever that looks like, I would lean into what are those symptoms? What are they telling you? And then adjust accordingly. So in my area of coaching, how I help people adjust is I'll look at their nutrition. So we do need more calories during our luteal phase because it is preparing our body to shed the uterine lining. So we'll look at nutrition. Make sure you're eating enough. Make sure you're eating the right things. Make sure that you're moving in a way that feels very supportive for your body. So instead of in your follicular phase, you feel like you could do everything, but in your luteal phase, as you are getting ready to start your period, you maybe don't feel like you can do everything. But if you continue to push through and not listen to your body, that can cause symptoms to get worse. It can cause your hormones to deplete. We look at that. We look at lifestyle things like how you're sleeping, your stress, where you can put boundaries in, where's your nervous system, how are things feeling in general? And I give tips and tricks on that. So it really is, if you are feeling gross before your period, it is a receipt that something is going on, and those other 3 areas need to be addressed, looked at. And of course, I'm always a fan of partnering with your doctor, getting blood work if you think there's something even more going on than that. All right, number 2, what foods help balance your hormones naturally? So in each phase, your menstruation, follicular, ovulatory, and luteal phase, there are different nutrients that will help you feel better. But before we even get into this nitpickiness of like, you should have more food or more of this type of food during this phase and more during this phase, it is important that you are actually eating enough to fuel your body. So when women are being told that they can only eat 1,200 calories, or they're dieting and you're having these hormonal symptoms, or you're having bad periods, or you're not able to sleep at night, or you feel constantly bloated, those are all way more important than these like getting really like granule with what your nutrition looks like or what specific nutrients need to be in each phase. So making sure that you're eating enough to nourish your body is one of the most important things, period, end of story. If you're not eating enough, you're likely just kind of depleting your body anyways. If you are chronically dieting, again, depleting your body anyways. However, in your menstrual phase, iron is important. So we are losing a lot of iron. So making sure to replenish that. Vitamin C is also important to help with the iron absorption. Magnesium will help reduce the cramps, and omega-3s help reduce your inflammation. Then in your follicular phase, we have the B vitamins, which will help regulate your mood. zinc, which helps support your ovulation as well as your immune system. Vitamin D, again, helping regulate your mood and immunity. And then focusing on starchy carbs to help with your energy levels as well. Then once we get to ovulation, we want to focus on antioxidants to help reduce our inflammation, but also improve our egg health, especially if we are looking to get pregnant. Fiber will be really important because this will help flush out any excess estrogen. Magnesium will also be important for your energy levels and any cramping that could be happening during ovulation. And protein is also really important, especially because this is our highest energy phase. And so if we are working out more, we do want something to help repair our muscles. And then finally, with our luteal phase, we have magnesium. Again, this is like the key, the secret of every phase, basically. It is going to help with your mood issues. If you have any type of like mood swings or cramps, it will help with cramps. Vitamin B6 will help with any type of bloating as well as mood irregularities. So, again, mood swings. Calcium actually helps you reduce your period symptoms, including the mood swings as well. So, I would encourage that during your luteal phase. Complex carbs, again, showing up. This is important because your body needs more energy during your luteal phase to prepare for your menstrual cycle to release all of your uterine lining. So your metabolism actually increases, and with that, we want to give it more carbs to help repair and get things moving. And then finally, omega-3s will help decrease the inflammation, which is oftentimes connected to a lot of our menstrual symptoms like our cramps. Those, like, take note of those, take a look at those. But again, if you are not eating enough, those kind of don't matter until you're eating enough. That is like the very foundation of like, let's eat enough. And then we can start getting very, very specific on these nutrients, what our calories and macros look like, etc. But first and foremost, fuel your body, eat enough. Again, I mentioned this probably in every single video about blood sugar, but eating every 3 to 4 hours is key. And that doesn't mean big meals. That could be teeny snacks as well throughout the day. All right, let's move on to question number 3. Question number 3, is it normal to feel super tired during your cycle? And so when this question is asked, I think what they mean is during your cycle is during like your actual period. Typically when we talk about cycle, we talk about like the full thing of like the follicular phase, ovulation, luteal, and menstruation. However, I think this one was specifically about the cycle. And I do not normalize symptoms. I have experienced with myself, with my clients, where you are maybe a little bit more tired during your period. And that is pretty normal. It's because your hormones are at their very, very lowest. So your estrogen, your progesterone are at their lowest. You are shedding a lot of blood. You're losing a lot of things. And so, yes, you may be a little bit more tired. However, if it is impacting you where you are having a hard time dragging yourself out of bed, or you're hitting 2 p.m. in the afternoon and you have brain fog and you can't really function, those are issues. Those are common, though not normal symptoms of fatigue around your period. And that typically means that your body needs something to feel a little bit more supported, whether that is adjusting your workouts, whether that is focusing on sleep and rest, supplementation, eating more. There's so many things that can go into this depending on the person. One of the biggest ones that you can easily start doing this cycle if you want is starting to really take care of your self-care during your luteal phase. So instead of just like thinking like, oh, like it's fine, like I'm not on my period, I'm gonna keep pushing through, I'm gonna work late hours, I'm gonna keep doing my like intense workouts, I'm gonna overschedule myself for plans. Instead of doing all of that in your luteal phase, start pulling back a little bit and prioritizing the sleep, prioritizing rest, saying no to plans that aren't like a hell yes type of plan, scaling back your workout intensity, scaling back the volume of your workouts. Really just focusing on more of that like self-care and nourishing yourself can also help you with feeling a little bit more tired during your period. And of course, if you are feeling tired, like make sure that you are taking the rest. I prioritize specifically getting red meat during my period because I'm also anemic. So when I am on my period, that's just like a whole like my energy is low. I don't feel great. So I prioritize red meat, and that really helps have carbs. But otherwise, really just like focus on what your body's telling you, rest, recover, and nourish your body. All right, question number 4. Should I change my workouts during certain times of the month? Um, Yes and no. So, where I want to go with this is I am not a fan of classic cycle syncing where they say you can only do weightlifting, running, HIIT exercises during your follicular phase and your ovulatory phase. And as soon as those are passed, as soon as you enter luteal phase and your menstruation phases, you can only do things like walking or yoga. I don't love that because my personal goals are to get stronger and faster. I love lifting, I love running. And if I wasn't able to do that for an entire month, like if I was only able to do that for 2 weeks, I'm missing out on the 2 weeks of the month where I wouldn't be able to do that according to classic cycle syncing. And so instead, what I've learned to do is listen to what my body's cues are. So if I am more tired, if I'm just like more breathless, if I'm not like super motivated, I adjust my workouts accordingly. I go into more maintenance style running or slower running, zone 2 running. I go into maybe shorter strength training sessions or decrease my weight a little bit or decrease the amount of volume in general, whether that is your sets or reps or weight or more rest time or more rest days. So I believe that you can adjust your workouts. There are also times like during my period where I just do not feel good enough to work out for a couple of days. That's fine. I take those days off and I'm okay with that because I know that's what my body needs. So, yes, you should adjust your workouts according to your energy level. But no, it doesn't mean that you are adjusting your workouts where you are not lifting weights for 2 weeks of the month. Because if we are starting and stopping like that, how much progress are we actually going to see with the workouts that we actually are enjoying, that we want to improve on, that are making us stronger? So listen to your body. Also, I just think in general, movement is super important throughout your whole cycle. It is just about how you adjust it. Just because I lift and run doesn't mean that you need to do it. I believe that you should do the movements and the workouts that feel good for you. All right, finally, how can stress mess with my hormones? So stress is a tricky one because I think that our bodies are still trying to figure out how to deal with modern day stress. And what I mean by that is we've all heard of the fight or flight response. So a bear is chasing you and you have to get away. So you are going to like run away, right? And that means your cortisol is increasing. You're just like your body is just focused on keeping you alive, keeping you away. However, our body and our minds and our hormones have not progressed from being chased by bears to literally we experience stress from the second we wake up. So we're waking up, we look at our phone, that's a stress. We have kids that we need to get out the door, we're running late, or we're sitting in rush hour, our boss calls us into his office, or we hit a hard workout, or we're dieting. Like all of these are stresses on our body. And our body wasn't designed to deal with that type of stress. Our body was designed to deal with the like, let's run away from a bear and save our lives kind of stress. And now our body is in a position of like fight and flight all the time. And some people have gotten to a point of freeze. And so where we start looking at stress is it impacts us all. Like we are always going to have some type of stress, whether that is a good stress, like working out, or a bad stress, like sitting in rush hour, being late for something, etc. Our body is always going to experience stress. So it's important to listen to it, take time and space for it. But stress starts showing up in other ways. So even though you might not feel stressed, and we've all been there where we're like, I'm not really that stressed, but then why do I have these other things going on? So even though you might not feel stressed, it is going to show up in other ways. One of the most common ones in my world for how it shows up is bloating. So I get a lot of women coming to me being like, I can't lose weight, but I also feel really bloated. My midsection is like holding on to the weight. Stress does build out from that midsection. That's why a lot of people have that like tire look around their middle. but it also contributes to bloating. So bloating isn't just a food issue. It is also a stress issue. It's a cortisol issue. Um, Fatigue is also impacted by stress. So when we are super tired but wired, that is a stress response. When we do have trouble sleeping at night because our brain is just chitter chattering at us, that's a stress response. Even brain fog. So you are in the middle of a meeting and you're like, oh my gosh, I can't remember like this phrase or this name or this thing that I like is second nature to me. Stress response. Couple other stress responses could be things like cravings or mood swings. Cravings, our body feels like it needs something to get that next little high. That's a stress response. Mood swings, if we are feeling super stressed, we're not going to just be like skipping around like rainbows and sunshine all the time. We could be going from these like high highs and low lows just back and forth and feel really out of control of our body. A couple other things that could be happening with stress responses are skin issues. So if you do have high stress, it can show up on your skin because it's also impacting your gut, which impacts your skin. Another obvious one would be stomach issues. So if you've ever been very stressed about a presentation and your stomach is acting up before, that is a stress response. So stress shows up in so many different ways. Another one is like our sex drive. If we're super, super stressed, that is going to go down. When we were running from bears in much simpler times, we did not have to reproduce or digest our food or, really survive. So things in our body are slowing down, like our thyroid is slowing down, our sex drive is slowing down, our digestion is kind of slowing down. Other things start kind of shutting down or turning off or dialing back so that we can manage that stress. So we can run from that bear. Except today, we're not running from the bear. We're running from our boss or traffic or whatever. Our body just doesn't know the difference between the bear and 2025 and all of the things we have. So yes, to answer your question, how can stress mess with my hormones? It is one of the leading causes for hormonal imbalances, for hormone dysfunction and symptoms. And it can show up. And saying that, we also have times throughout the month where we are more prone to stress, or we can manage our stress a little bit better. So when I say that, in your luteal phase, one of the most like slightest inconveniences could really like impact your stress. However, in our follicular phase, that same inconvenience, we might be like unbothered by it. So it is also very much like how are you taking care of yourself? Like I mentioned earlier in this video, if you are like doing more self-care practices, you'll be able to manage the stress more. If we're depleting ourselves from the second we wake up to the second we go to bed, your stress is going to give you hormonal symptoms, and those symptoms are a sign that something needs to be checked in on. And if you have goals like physique goals to get stronger, to get faster, when you have unmanaged stress, it does ultimately impact those goals as well. All right. And then the last question I got, which wasn't really a question, it just said, talk about hips and midsection weight. So I do kind of want to talk about that. Just, I'm not sure what the exact question was. However, just to kind of bring it all home, stress does impact those areas as well. For women specifically, estrogen also impacts those areas. So it depends on the person with those areas. If we are trying to lose those areas or shrink those areas, it is very, very important to lean into how you're fueling your body, making sure we're getting enough fiber, making sure we're getting enough protein, making sure we're eating enough. But it is also important to be doing things like lifting weights, to be walking. So another thing you don't want to do is especially if you have a high stress that's out of control, I don't want you like out here like going for sprints. I want you to walk. I want you to really nourish your stress levels. And by doing movement, but also nourishing our body in how we move and how we eat, it should help those areas. Sleep is also a very, very important part of any type of physique changes. So if you are not getting 8 hours of sleep, it is going to be very, very hard to change your physique. If you have unmanaged stress, very hard to change your physique. So with all of these types of things, if you have symptoms, they are just a sign from your body that something else is going on internally. And those signs are going to be things that also remind you that you need to address these if you want to do X, Y, and Z, lose weight, get toned, get stronger, hit a PR, get faster, whatever your like ultimate big goal is, like even just like feeling better in your skin, these teeny little symptoms need to be addressed first. They might seem annoying, like the bloating. I get it. We're all just like, oh, bloating, I'm bloated, blah, blah, blah. We kind of brush it off. Once you get your bloating in check, you'll be able to do X, Y, and Z. Once you get your skincare in check, X, Y, and Z. Once you're sleeping through the night and feeling refreshed, you'll be able to do anything. So get your symptoms under control, and then you'll be absolutely unstoppable for losing that midsection weight, for getting toned in your thighs, etc. So I'm not sure if that helps answer that question. If I do a Q&A in the future and that one pops back up, I'll dive a little bit more into detail, but just because it wasn't a full question, I don't know like totally how to answer it. Hopefully that kind of answers it. If not, and you asked that question, please let me know and we can dive a little bit deeper. Otherwise, that is all I have for you guys for Hormone Happy Hour this week. Happy June, a happy almost summer. We are almost in the inner summer, the ovulatory season, the baddie season. So I'm very excited about that. And I will be traveling this week, but I will be back next week with another Hormone Happy Hour. And that is all I have for you today. Cheers.